to my latest AFL tipping video for season 2026. And yes, we've had a bit of an epic round from opening round. We had quite a few good games, and we're approaching the proper start of the season for every other team that is starting this week. So let's go for opening round and what happened there. Sydney won by 63 points, way exceeded my margin, but good to get the first tip on the board. Then a big upset happened at Peel Stone, but not surprising. But Gold Coast Suns win by 56 points over the Geelong Cats. Yes, Geelong will be nearly fired up. I'm hoping that doesn't end badly for the Dockers. Then Geo, a big upset. GOS beating the Hawks, but I did tip the Giants, so I was not screwed over as much people were. Then the weird match of the round. Western Bulldogs by 5. High scoring affair at the Gabba. And then probably another closing by near upset. Secured over Collingwood. Well, I'm pretty sure you've checked out the latest video about Cardman, which is his vlog claiming it was a horror show. Saints actually played quite well that week, so yeah, quite a few positives to take away, but luckily this is round 1 now, so they've got a bit of a break coming up soon. So, round 1. So first game of the round is Carlton Richmond on Channel 7 at Foxtel, KO and all the relevant broadcasters. This should be good. Carlton need to respond after a very dismal showing against the Swans. Richmond, they've come off pretty good. Let's check their pre-season, because Richmond came very close to beating Demons, but it had not been for crappy weather at Ballarat, and that should be good. I've tipped that Carlton have been coming off opening round, and they looked good for 3 quarters until they got absolutely smashed. So I'm tipping Carlton by 6, and my big call is Pinnet who had a big game last week. He'll get 30 hitouts. Then this is the big match everyone's been talking about out this week. Essendon Hawthorn. Hawthorn are coming off a very average showing against the GOS Giants, who they were expected to win, but they did not, I'm afraid. So the Bombers going off a week off, prepared well, but losing to St Kilda in the pre-season did not help at all. Remember, it's a 4-4 bounce down, so it means everyone will be able to catch that game. It's on 7 plus Fox KO. I reckon because the Hawks have actually come up opening round, and I reckon I think the Hawks will win it. Because Essendon was shit against St Kilda, and St Kilda was shit were ultimately fell over in the last against the Hawks. Against the Hawks, the Pies. So yeah. So this, I reckon, Essendon will be close, but Hawks will do a Sydney and go smack and win by 30 points. Big call is Gunston will kick 5. Remember, put down your punishments below. Then there's the Super Saturday Fox special that kicks off with the first game at Marvel Stadium for 2026 between the Western Bulldogs and the GOS Giants. Both teams are coming off a very good wins over opening round, which they weren't expected to win. This should be good. Doggies and Giants have a good rivalry happening, but last time they played, it was a walloping at Marvel. Not expecting the same thing to happen again, but why? No. I think the Giants, it should be good. I reckon the Doggies, I think the Doggies won't, they'll probably struggle because of the humidity that was up in Brisbane last Saturday. They'll probably struggle. I think Giants will win it by 3 points. Big call is Stringer backs up opponents and kicks 2. Now this is the game been looking forward to all summer. It's the Geelong Cats take on the Fremantle Dockers at GMHBA Stadium. Unfortunately, I'm just going to break. This is for Western Australian fans, so if you're Victorians, you can skip forward until I'll tell you on the comments. So, WA viewers, unfortunately, I will delay telecast to start this season with Fremantle and Geelong. Reason is Fox have a 100-minute exclusivity until about round 11. So it means Freo is going to be hardest hit out of the Western Australian clubs. And yeah, because they played well last season, we end up on the Fox's slot. So it's a 3 o'clock start. However, if you want to beat the late telecast, ABC Radio is your bet, unless you have Foxco, which kindly disregard that. The Cats, they were frankly quite disappointing against the Gold Coast Suns. They were actually, the Suns pretty much outclassed them, and I have a bad feeling this is going to be a disaster for Geelong. And they probably want to make amends against Fremantle side, but Fremantle actually look very good this year. They've got pretty much a full strength line up to pick from, and Mason Cox, and they've got good depth too. Mason Cox firing at Sakura, which causes a bit of a headache. I'm going to tip the outsider here because Fremantle are not expected to win this, because it's in Geelong. I'm going to tip Fremantle at 3 points, and my big call is that Pavos backs up his excellent match against Adelaide and kicks free. Now it's Sydney Swans taking on Brisbane Lions at the SCG. It's on delayed telecast. Sydney and Queensland viewers, it sucks. I'm just going to frick you, AFL, because this is actually going to be a good game, and you dumped it on a Saturday nighter. So Sydney are coming out, looking very strong with Curnow up forward, and they performed very well. So I think this is their time to shine against the reigning premiers, the Brisbane. Wowee, they had a game of the ages against the Western Bulldogs, and I have a good feeling about this because they actually played quite well before the Doggies overran them. This should be a good game by rights. Should be by rights quite pleasing. Seeing with the Sydney and the Lions, I think Sydney will take the chocolates because it's at the SCG, but Brisbane will push them mightily close. I think Brisbane will win this. I think Sydney will win this by 1 point, and my big call is Cam Rayner will attempt to kick one after the siren. Now, Collingwood play Adelaide Crows. Remember, this is delayed colour. That's Adelaide viewers. I'm going to check on the SA. I'm giving WA and SA fans a little heads up. So because this is ACTD time. Yeah, 8:30 delayed telecasting Adelaide. So, yeah, you're kind of screwed. This is going to be a good game, mind you. So, this is actually rather stupid of the AFL to do a good game. This is pretty much a revenge match of that qualifying final last year. This should be a good game. Crows were disappointing against Fremantle in the pre-season, and they want to bounce back. Collingwood, they nearly got there against St Kilda. They nearly lost it, but Dacos saved them, and yeah, I think Pies are a bit match-shown, but the Crows are going to probably win it because I just hate Collingwood. Engine. I reckon Collingwood will lose it on the siren, and Adelaide wins by 6 points. Now for the second Marvel Stadium game of the round, it's the North Melbourne versus Port Adelaide on the Sunday. Remember, this is a live game for SA viewers because Port, it's a Sunday game. Remember, all Sunday games are free to air, despite if they're on Fox or not, if you're depending on where you live. So Port, these two are relatively unknown. North Melbourne are coming off a very good showing against Collingwood, which is highly unusual, winning by a point. Port, they absolutely smashed the crud out of the West Coast Eagles in their practice match. And to be frankly honest, West Coast weren't good. Didn't have their best side out there, but Port looked good. North Melbourne. This should be a good game with the other games that are happening on this day, and I think this is going to be good. I reckon I'm going to go with the outsider here. North will win it by 15 points, and my big call is that Griffin Logue takes 30 intercept marks. Now let's head to the main Channel 7 game of the year, and yep, it's St Kilda of the week. Yep, it's St Kilda versus Melbourne at the MCG. It's a Melbourne home game, but St Kilda playing a second game at the G in a row, which pleases a lot of people. So, Melbourne, well, can't really judge off their preseason match because they got abandoned in the bar 3 quarters in due to lightning at Ballarat. But they did look good in patches against Lions, but they have been hit again with a retirement with Stephen May deciding, that's it, I'm out of here. And this is going to leave the Demons very undermanned, and I'm very worried about their start to their tenure under Stephen. Saints looked good, despite what people are saying that they looked absolute shit. They were actually quite good against the Pies. So great chances, and they didn't take them as symbolic of Ross Lyon coach sides. I reckon the Saints actually can beat the D's because the Demons are expected to be rubbish for the entire season. I'm going to reckon St Kilda will win this by comfortable margin, about 30 points. A big call is Cooper Sharman kicks 3 because he looked very good against Collingwood. Now the final game of the round, Gold Coast versus the West Coast Eagles. Well, this is going to be the expected whipping round for the Gold Coast after the win over Collingwood, but West Coast, to be honest with you, look absolute shit. They looked very poor against the Port with only half strength line. I was actually thinking they can beat Port, but Jesus, they were shit. This is going to probably be quite ugly for West Coast. I'm tipping Gold Coast here, but I'm hoping West Coast can do it. I think Gold Coast win by less so they did against Geelong, which is about, I reckon, 45 points. And because Warman kicks 3 in a losing side. Remind that's on Channel 7 and 7 Plus after Melbourne and St Kilda coverage at the MCG. So there we go. Fantasy also kicks off this week. I'll be putting down the fancy things on the description. And remember, I'll be posting this pretty much daily, so pretty much weekly. I'll be doing a ladder thing next week on Thursday. Stay at some point. That won't be affected by opening round. I'm doing a PowerPoint. I won't be revealing on stream, but I'll be doing a PowerPoint with my predicted teams to do well this season. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Put like down, and subscribe, and remember to put down your punishments. I got my tips right. Don't want to do a punishment, but I'm very but this is for the Gold Coast game. Win West Coast. If West Coast win, I will do a live stream singing Living the Vida Loca by Ricky Martin. I'm hoping I don't have to do that. I shall see you in the next one. And also, mental health first before YouTube.